So this is Nina who designed the Chinook lace shawl as part of our lace sampler kits. So I asked Nina to show us her design process and some of the things she worked through to get to the finished shawl. So what do you have there, Nina?
I have a pile of swatches. The first one that I have is the initial swatch that I did for this project. I'll put it down so you can get a look at it. This is a stitch pattern from Barbara Walker's second treasury of knitting patterns. It's called Milanese Lace. This is worked with gloss lace single-stranded on a size 6 needle. And the first thing that I did designing this shawl was I went through our many stitch dictionaries and resources looking for inspiration in the different patterns. And this was one that I really liked because it has like a really nice sort of curving organic form to it.
Yeah, it builds on itself.
Right, and
it's very cool.
But at the same time, it's not like very floral or very representational. So I really, after several swatches, this was the one that I decided was going to be the inspiration piece for the rest of the shawl. So I adjusted the stitches. I took the same basic idea, but I adjusted the stitch counts. And I adjusted the gauge, and I worked. And I worked extra increases and decreases into the pattern.
Right.
Because I wanted the shawl to sort of grow out of these little shell-like forms. Rather than, I think the way that I've often seen lace shawls made is that you incorporate a row of increases between different
pattern
motifs.
rows. Yeah.
And I thought it would be fun to make a shawl that really didn't have an obvious line of increase and increment in it, where the whole thing just seemed to organically grow out of the initial pattern. So this was my second swatch. I did it on size 9 needles and decided that it was a little too loose. But it allowed me to figure out where the increases and decreases were going to go in the pattern to keep it consistent with what I started with. And then this is the third swatch. And you can see
I like that one.
Yeah.
My favorite.
You can see here that the pattern for the shawl has really been realized in this one.
And it's making a nice wedge shape as you increase.
Exactly. So the idea is that out of these eyelets, this Milanese lace kind of grows, and each time the fan or scale of it gets larger and larger, and this is what lets the shawl grow out of that.
Cool.
So that was actually the easy part of the design process because after finding this pattern, I had a really clear idea of how I wanted it to appear in the finished product. Then there was the issue of the border. Because we wanted the piece to have a contrasting border so that knitters could use the extra skein on the border or for a lace shawl. And this is not a pattern that to me suggested a really intuitive border piece. So I started experimenting, and the first thing I played with was some fir cone, which is a really traditional Shetland pattern. And the reason that I like this one also is because of you can see the sort of undulating columns of knit stitches. Exactly, and I think it's really beautiful, and it occurred to me because of the sort of arching forms of this lace that maybe these could be put together. But
But no.
no.
It's all trial and error, huh?
It is. Here's an example of one of the swatches that I knit and trying to make this happen, and I realized that this column of decreases was always going to interrupt the flow of stitches in the shawl, and I had tried it 8 ways from Sunday. Never got anything that was satisfactory to me. So then I decided to try something that just again emphasized these wedge shapes in the original, and I have a pretty ugly swatch because this is the one where I worked it all out, but you can see that there's these sort of fishnet wedges that grow out of the original pattern. And they're not blocked very well because they've been on my bulletin board for a few months, but in the final piece they echo the same exact shape that the lace in the shawl has been taking, and they carry it through to the border.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So this is, can I show the piece?
Yeah, ready to show?
Yeah. This is a true lace knit. There's patterning on both sides.
Right. So explain that, because the customer wanted to see the back side of the shawl, and it's because I think we didn't word it quite right. What does it mean to have patterning on every row?
Well, there's, I always mix them up. There's lace knitting, which is where you have your yarn overs and your decreases on the right side, or the knit side of the fabric. And the wrong side of the fabric is always purled.
Yeah.
Straight through.
Right.
And that is when we would say then that you have patterning only on the right side.
Yep.
And then there is knitted lace, which has yarn overs and decreases on both the knit
every row.
and the purl side.
Yeah.
So a lot of newer lace knitters gravitate towards lace knitting.
Because you have a row you don't have to think about.
Exactly. They like to take a break on the purl row, and I understand that completely. So, and one of the things that we were thinking when designing this shawl was that we wanted it to be appropriate for newer knitters to be able to try. So even though this piece has patterning on both sides, the pattern is really easy.
Okay.
I promise. I promise. You can use markers. They don't get moved around a lot during the knitting of it.
Okay.
It can definitely be worked by someone who's new to lace.
Okay.
And it gets easier because the repeats get bigger.
Right, faster and faster. There you go.
Exactly. So here is...
There's the purple one.
Yeah,
so pretty. Oh my goodness, I have to back up here. I'm not even going to get it, the whole thing. There. How pretty.
Yeah.
And you did the color changes by just running two different colors together. It's double-stranded throughout.
That's right.
Yep.
The whole thing is double-stranded, so we arranged the colors in a gradient. The top of the piece is double-stranded, is like color A double-stranded, and then we've got A and B double-stranded, and B and C, and C and D, and D and E, D and D and E.
Yep, and then the border is a different color,
and
which allows you to knit the scarf if you don't want the border.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you didn't want to knit the border, then the shawl would just cut off
right there
at this point, and it makes a little scallopy edge on its own.
It blocks very nicely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
like
it's totally acceptable not to knit it with the border, and you can also see here more what I was talking about with the lace of the border,
right?
Following the same pattern as the wedges.
Cool. And you brought a couple color samples of the other colorways.
I sure did.
We're only showing the full
Right.
purple.
We don't have samples.
We didn't have enough knitters to knit everyone up in
sad.
every colorway. Yeah, it is sad.
So the swatches are done just in the Milanese lace without the increases written in, so that the knitters could get a better idea of how the color changes look. So this is the blue
Atoll, I think we call it.
set. Yeah. This gradient is what's included in the kit, and the contrast blue that has a little bit of a different undertone than the rest of it is the extra color, which can be
for the border
either
or
the
not.
border or the scarf.
Right.
Exactly. This is the Riverstone,
Oh, I like that
the
one.
neutral kit. I do too.
That's pretty.
Yeah, I was surprised actually by how much I loved it when this one came back. And again, these are the colors for the shawl in the kit, and this is the optional border color. And my personal favorite.
Thanks. I think we call it coral.
Yeah, I think it's the
really does look like
reef.
coral, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I really love this one, especially the interplay between the orange and the pink down there.
Great summer shawl.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Nina.
You're welcome, Tina. This has been fun.
Yeah.